What is going on, people? Nathan Robinson from Canadian Dose of Spurs here, and in today's video we are going to be breaking down the entire Tottenham Hotspur squad and looking at who they're going to buy, who they're going to sell, and how it all works for the Uefa Champions League and Premier League squad number situation. As I'm sure most of you know, it's not looking so good for Spurs, man. There's a lot of implications, especially for UEFA, in terms of the roster size, homegrown, club trained, that sort of thing. So I will be breaking down all the numbers, making it so you guys can understand it, and really we can go in depth on what we can actually do in terms of summer transfers, summer signings, and that sort of thing. So before I get into the video, do something for me, please. Make sure to like the video and make sure to subscribe. I cannot thank you guys enough for the growth on the channel lately, man. And we are almost at 200 subscribers. We are right there. So we're on the road to 500, on the road to 1K. So hopefully after this video we can get to 200. So who wants to be the number 200? Who wants to be it? So yeah, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And let's get right into this, man. Let's freaking go. This is gonna be interesting. It's gonna be super duper interesting. Okay, so I just want to quickly give a sweet shout out to George Aquilia. I think that's how you say his name, because he did a video on this, and I'm kind of like referencing his in terms of like the whole spreadsheet idea, but I kind of put my own twist on it and actually looking at the numbers from the previous summer transfer windows and actually looking at like the signings that could be more realistic, if that makes sense. Not saying that his wasn't realistic, but I think if you look at some of his signings, man, it was just an insane amount of transfers that I just didn't think would be realistic. So I decided to break it down. And even mine might not be realistic. It's like, let me know down in the comments, guys. Like, are my signings realistic? But yeah, we'll get right into it. So as you can see right now, this is currently all the players that we have on our roster in terms of squad numbers. So as you can see, like I included guys like Brian Hill, sorry, because he's still here. Obviously Richie, Alejo Valise, all these guys, even some of the under 21s. So the big thing to understand here is that obviously non-homegrown players are your players from, international players that are not from England and the UK. And then you have your homegrown players. So these are players that essentially have been brought up and raised in the UK and have been in clubs for an X amount of years. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then the under 21s, obviously, you don't need to register them. So they don't count towards a squad spot. So all these under 21s that you see here, they actually do not count towards a squad spot. So we don't have to worry about their numbers. So you're looking at guys like Matisse Tell, Odeberg, Vuskovic, Bergvall. We don't have to register them. And then, of course, for Champions League, it gets a little bit more different here. So for Champions League, we can only have a minimum. We have to have a minimum of 4 club trained players. So these are players that have been trained up and brought up through the club. And as you know, we legit have none besides Mikey Moore. But Mikey Moore is going to be in the B squad because he's a young kid and he's come through the club. So pretty much the B squad is pretty much any academy players going to the B squad and that are under the age of 21, I believe. So we have no club trained players if you really look at it, which is a problem because we have to meet the minimum requirement for 4. And if we meet the minimum requirement for 4, we can have a squad of 25, assuming that we also have the 4 association trained players as well, giving us a total of 8. In order to meet the squad number of 25, you have to have at least 4 club trained and 4 association trained. So these are players like Jet Spence, James Madison, Brennan Johnson, Archie Gray, who have been brought up in English clubs and now are on Spurs. So those are association trained. So right now, if we look at it, we only have Brandon Austin, who is the only club trained because, we don't have any other ones. The only other one is Mikey Moore, but he's going to be in B squad. And then we, of course, have Archie Gray, Jed Spence, James Madison, and Brendan Johnson in association trained. So, yeah, like I might have note here, so Spurs only have 1 club trained player, so the max squad size we can have is 22. So, let's break down the rule here just so you guys understand it. And this is from ChatGPT because it was the best way to actually summarize it all and so you guys can have a better understanding of the whole situation. So I put it in ChatGPT for you guys so you can understand it better. So if you look at it here, what the rule says is clubs can name up to 25 players on list A. Of those, at least 8 spots must be locally trained. So locally trained, guys, locally trained is the club trained and the association trained. So those two, those count as locally trained. So of those 8, at least 8 spots must be locally trained. 4 must be club trained. That's what I mentioned before over there. And then so it breaks down what club trained is. So spent 3 seasons for or 36 months between ages 15 and 21 at that specific club. And then 4 can be association trained. So spent 3 seasons between the ages of 15 and 21 at any club within the same national association. So if you don't have if you don't have all 8 locally trained players, your total list A squad size shrinks accordingly. So I believe for every player that you don't have as the locally trained, your squad size decreases by 1. So we have right now 5 locally trained. So our squad decreases by 3. So we have 22 players that we can actually register. So that's why we have 22. I hope that makes sense, guys. I hope you're understanding that. It's really complex. It's really complicated. I know it's kind of tough, but yeah, I've been researching this for the past how many ever so hours, so I can really break it down for you guys. So yeah, because we only have 5 locally trained players, for every player that you don't have that doesn't meet the requirement of 8, you subtract a player from your squad size. So when we have 5, we need 8. So subtract 3. That puts us down at 22 from 25. Hope that makes sense. So for Tottenham specifically, they have 4 club trained players, but Spurs only have 1 senior club trained player, Brandon Austin, currently available. They have more than 4 association trained players, so they can only register 4 of them. And any additional association trained players beyond those 4 instead must count to 4 non-locally trained, filling up the other 17 non-homegrown slots. As a result, Spurs are forced to either register fewer than 25 players or sign more club trained players. And like Kyle Walker-Peters, and we'll get into that. Or loan or sell players, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, pretty much guys like Solanke also would count as association trained, and Ben Davis too. But because we can only have a maximum of 4, we have to put them in non-homegrown. So that's why those guys are over there. So Ben Davis, Danzo, Solanke, that's why they're over here, because we can only have a maximum of 4 association trained players. So this is what we're looking at right now for the squad. So yeah, it doesn't work. This does not work. So we need to sell players. Okay, so next up here, what I essentially do is I list off of players who we're going to sell or loan, just so I can kind of bring down the numbers to see how we can actually make the transfer window work. So let's get right into it. Okay, so taking the list that we had before, these are the players that I'm going to either sell or loan. So the players in red are the ones that I'm probably going to sell, and the players in yellow are the ones that I'm going to look at loaning out. So, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room. As you can see, Heung-min Son is being sold. Listen, man, listen. I love Son, and he's my favorite player. I have Son on my wall, like legit right behind me, where behind my mic is. Son right there. But the thing is that with Son, he won us the Europa League, and he didn't have his best season last season. And I think now is honestly the best time for him to go. And the reality is, if we want to sign more players, we're going to have to sell Son. We're going to have to be ruthless. We're going to have to like legit be aggressive, man, because if we want to sell some players, if we want to buy some players, Son is going to have to go. He's going to have to go. It hurts, it sucks, but it's the reality. So Son is getting sold. On top of that, Richarlison is also getting sold. And I like Richie as well, but the same thing. The biggest problem with Richarlison is, as we all know, he cannot stay fit. If you actually look at his goals per minute, he actually scores a bunch of goals for the amount of minutes that he plays. But the big problem with Richarlison is that he cannot stay fit. So he's another one that just got to go, man. And I look at guys like Brian Hill, gone. Valise, gone. Solomon. Now, the club has talked about bringing Solomon back and trying him out under Thomas Frank. But I predict that it's probably not going to go as well as we would have thought, and we're probably going to sell him. I think the club's just doing that just to see if we can drive up his value, or just to see like if he can actually be quality. But I don't think he'll be the quality that we need to push us on. So I'm looking at a guy like Solomon for us to potentially sell. So I have him as sold. And then, of course, Bissouma is also out the door. Listen, we need a proper 6. We're re-signing Bentancur. There's no room for Bissouma. He's got to go, man. We got to clear up numbers. And then as well as Ben Davis as well. So the club actually ended up re-signing Ben Davis to a 1-year contract extension. But I think that's just so we can actually get money for him and not let him go on a free. So Ben Davis can still get sold. He can still get sold. But we re-signed him for a year, so I predict that he's probably going to go as well. And then I also look at a guy like Dane Scarlett. Dane Scarlett has flattered to deceive. He hasn't gotten the minutes for our club. He's pretty much gone out on loan a whole bunch, and it hasn't really been that successful. I'm looking at a guy like Dane Scarlett to potentially end up going, and we get a couple million in for him, and we just call it a day, man. Like, there's no room. I don't think another loan is going to help him. He needs to push on. I think it's just better for him to go. And then, of course, we have guys like Ashley Phillips, Alfie Devine, Jamie Donnelly, Olasesi. Like, all those guys are all going on loan. I would love Ashley Phillips to stay, but I just don't think that there's room for him. So I think he's got to go too. And then, of course, this is how it essentially affects the Champions League squad. So we shorten up a lot of these numbers by selling Basuma, Solomon, Hill, all those guys. We sell them all to shore up those numbers to make sure that we can actually get enough players in. So this now leads into the summer transfers. And what I essentially did here is I broke down the last 3 summer transfer windows that Spurs have had. I look at the average spend, I look at the average sales, and I look at the average net spend to really gauge of how we can essentially spend this summer. Because I don't want to be unrealistic. I want to be as objective and as realistic as I possibly can. So I just looked at the past 3 Premier League seasons for Spurs for the summer, and I essentially looked at how much they're going to be spending / selling. And I just based that off of what I'm going to buy for players next season or this summer. So if we have a look at it, if we look at summer of 2022, I also converted the pounds to euros, but if we look at summer 2022, the estimated spending was 235 million pounds or 275 million euros, with an estimated sales / loans income of 35 million pound or 41 million euros, and a net spend of 200 million pound or 235 million euros. So that's summer of 2022. And then summer of 2023, we had an estimated spend of 258 million euros, and then the sales was 120 million euros, and then net spend was 136 million euros. And for the summer of 2023, this is the summer where we sold Harry Kane. So that's where the bulk of this 100 million comes from. So the net spend ends up becoming to 136 million euros. And then, of course, last summer, we spent around 224 million euros, and then we brought in an estimated amount of money of 23 million euros. And then we had a net spend of about 200 million euros. So looking at that, if we average out the last 3 summers in terms of the numbers, what we see is that we have an average spend of the last 3 summers of 250 million euros, an average sales of 61 million euros, and then an average net spend of 190 million euros. So based off of this information, what I have essentially done here is I have determined that for the summer, we're going to have a budget of around 190 million euros net spend. Average spend, probably about 250, but I doubt we're going to do that. It's probably more closer to 200 million. But I think net spend, so between sales and transfer outgoings, it's going to have to be around 200 million. That's what we're really aiming for this window. So I pretty much broke down essentially what positions that Spurs are going to be most likely looking for in terms of priority. So of course, we need a right winger, a left winger, a striker, a CDM, a left back or right back, and a number 10 or a cam. The reason why I say the cam is least important is just because we have James Maddison and Kulusevski there. However, and actually someone in my recent videos actually commented this, is that Kulusevski and Maddison can't stay fit. They get injured quite a bit. So we should probably look at bringing in a 10 to offset that, so we can actually have a 10 throughout the entire season, not just have to rely on Kids or Bergwall. We need to have these 10s playing every single game if possible. So that's the reason why we'd look at a 10, and that's like where a guy like Eze comes in. But yeah, if we're going to sell Son, we need a left winger. If we're going to sell Richarlison, we need a backup striker. We obviously need a 6. It's tough, man. Like, we need a lot this summer, and I don't know if we're going to get all this done. But this actually leads in to the next part of this video. I pretty much broke down the potential sales and the potential buys, and I tried to be as realistic and as objective as possible. So let me know if this is too much, or if I'm like low-key undershooting, or like what are you guys thinking? Because I tried to like not be like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, we can get like Simons, Eze, and we're not getting all of them, bro. We're not gonna get them all. So I tried to be as objective and realistic as possible with this summer signing transfer list here. So let's have a look at it. For player sales, let's start with this. So of course, you have Bissouma. I think we can sell him for around 20 million euros. Manor Solomon around 15 because he had a really good championship loan with Leeds. So I think we can get around 15 for him. Aleo Valise, man, we're not gonna get anything for him. I said 2 million, bro. We're not gonna get anything for him, bro. Brian Hill, 10. I think this is low-key overshooting. We might be lucky if we get 5, to be honest, man. 10 is low-key overshooting, I feel like. But I'll leave it here for now. Let me know what you guys think. And then for the striker, or sorry, for so for Richarlison, I said 25 for Richarlison. I think we can get 25 if he goes to Everton, maybe 20. If he goes to Saudi, we can probably get even more. But I think we're probably gonna get around 25 for him. And then Ben Davis, we're probably gonna get around 5. And then Son, I said 30 just because of the fact that I don't know if he's gonna go to Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia would pay us probably closer to 50, maybe 45. But I don't know if he's gonna want to go to Saudi. So if he's not going to Saudi Arabia, I think we probably get around 30. I know Fenerbahce is looking at him, and I think they said 30, so I just estimated 30. We'll see. And then Dane Scarlett, I said 2, bro. Like, it's dead, man. That's not... It's just dead, man. So with an average total sales of 109 million euros. So that's a lot, and that's way more than the average that we've really been having. That's more than the average of the last 3 summers. So we're going to get a lot of sales this summer. So if you look at the buys... And this is very interesting here. So what I essentially did here is I said that we are going to get Brian Mbeumo. Will we actually get him? I don't know. Let's see. I hope so, but maybe I'm too ambitious. I don't know. But I think Frank can convince him. I hope. But yeah, so I said we're going to get Mbeumo for around 65 because I think that's what Brentford is quoting for Mbeumo is 65. So I said 65 for Mbeumo. And then Eze, I said 70 just because he has a 60 million pound or 60 million euro release clause, but an extra 10 million in add-ons. So I counted for that essentially, and I said 70 million euros. And then for the striker position, I said, actually, let me go back to Eze really quick. So previously we were saying that we essentially needed a left winger / cam. So with that, I essentially said Eze just fits that, both of those. Let's just get Eze, fill in the left, and fill in as a number 10. So Eze kind of covers that for both positions. So that's why I said Eze would be a perfect fit for us. And as well, I just love Eze as a whole. So I think that's a smart business of getting Eze. He can fill it on the left. He can also fill it on number 10 as well. So then for striker, we have Yoan Wissa. I said 45 million for Wissa. I think the transfer market value is 40 million euros. So I just said probably we're going to get 45 from Brentford. They're probably going to ask for it. So I just said 45 for Wissa to fill in the striker position. And then I said João Palhinha. Of course, I don't think we've been actually concretely linked to him. I think it's just more so Spurs fans saying that we should get him. But I think with João Palhinha, he'd be the perfect 6 replacement. He's experienced. He fits the age range. Get him for 2 years, really help us develop. And I think he'd be perfect. And I think Bayern was willing to let him go as well. So I think João Palhinha would be perfect for this team. So João Palhinha for 30. And then we have Kyle Walker-Peters. Kyle Walker-Peters, man. This is the most Levy transfer ever. But honestly, it just makes sense. It really does. Kyle Walker-Peters was formerly for Spurs. He played for us previously. He's club trained, homegrown, all that. Checks off a bunch of boxes. So with Kyle Walker-Peters, I think it just makes overall sense to actually bring him in. For those reasons that I listed, club trained, homegrown, it just makes logical sense. And he's cheap. He can fill in left back and right back. I think it just has to get done just for the squad number situation as a whole. So if you look at this as a whole, you have association trained for Mbeumo and Eze because Mbeumo came up not through Brentford's academy, but he's been there meeting the age requirements. And then Eze, of course, always grew up playing in England. And then Wissa and Palhinha are not homegrown. And then Kyle Walker-Peters club trained due to us. So that's a total expenditure of 230 million euros. But if you pay attention and look at the net spend is 121 million euros. So this actually puts us way below what we've been averaging for the past 3 summers. We've averaged 190 for average net spend. And this one, we're only going to net spend 121 million, assuming we get this much in player sales. So that's why I think this could actually be realistic. And honestly, if you look at this window, I would be very happy with this window. This would make me happy. I think this would be perfect. This would push us on This would be enough Champions League pedigree, and this would be enough experience as well as a team. You got Wissa, who's experienced, Eze, Mbuemo, Polina, Walker Peters. Like, this is perfect. Perfect window. I would love this. And it's kind of realistic in terms of the spending. So, let's get into how it would look in the Premier League. So in the Premier League, what we'd be looking at here is our homegrown is fine for the Premier League. Like, we're good. We can also sign a whole bunch more Premier League players if you really wanted to. Like, we're only at 13. So we're good. And I also wanted to hear that Mbuemo actually doesn't count as homegrown. Why he doesn't qualify is because to be classified as a homegrown player by the Premier League, a player must be registered with any club affiliated to the English or Welsh FA for at least 3 entire seasons or 36 months prior to turning 21. So Mbuemo joined Brentford at the age of 19. His time at Brentford by August 2020, when he turned 21, spans just 2 seasons. So that's why he's not homegrown. He was only at Brentford for 2 seasons before he turned 21. That's why he's not homegrown, for anyone wondering. But yeah, in terms of the Premier League, like, we're good for homegrown. Matisse Tell, under 21, don't need to register him. Same thing with Odebear. Like, we're good for those numbers. Bergvall, we're good for Premier League. Now, with the Champions League, this is where it gets really interesting. So just having a look at it in the Champions League, we're going to have to be ruthless. We're going to have to leave some people out. And it really sucks, but it's the reality. We're going to have to leave out Archie Gray, Dragusin, and Kulusevski to fit in the numbers. And this is where it gets really complicated. So because we're bringing in a Kyle Walker-Peters, remember the whole locally trained thing? So because we're bringing in Kyle Walker-Peters, that puts our number up from 5 to 6. So because our number is up from 5 to 6, we can now have 23 squad players instead of 22. So let me say that again for people who don't understand. Because we are signing Kyle Walker-Peters, he is club trained. So because he's club trained, he adds to the locally trained number, going from 5 to 6. And because we're going from 5 to 6, we can now have a squad of 23 instead of 22. I hope that makes sense. And listen, I know it's complicated. It's really tough to understand, but yeah, that's what we're looking at. However, because of that, it doesn't still fix the association trained, and we're still short the minimum 4. So we can still only have a maximum of 17 in the squad. So with that being said, I was kind of ruthless. And remember, B squad doesn't count. B squad does not count. So it's pretty much under 21s who are like raised by the club. Pretty much any academy players. Mikey Moore doesn't count. So I had to leave out Archie Gray. I know it's harsh, but with this, you can have him in association trained, but then you have to move one of these guys over to here. And with doing that, you're still going to have over the 17. We're going to have 18 here. So we're going to have to leave someone out. And I said, honestly, leave out Archie Gray. We have enough midfield coverage. And we got to get guys like a Walker-Peters in there. We have to have Vuskovic in there. And this, I didn't even talk about this. I think Vuskovic will stay, just based off of the fact that we need him for the Champions League and the squad numbers as a whole. We're probably not going to sign a center back, assuming Romero stays. So I think if we're going to actually make the club numbers work for the Champions League, Vuskovic is going to have to stay. He's going to have to fill in the Champions League, because we cannot go into the Champions League with only 3 center backs. We'd only be having Van de Ven, Romero, and Danzo. And of course you have Dragusin, but Dragusin had an ACL, and I don't think he's going to be back for the start of the season. If he is, that's great, but I don't think he will. So I think we just leave him out of the squad, assuming he's not going to be back. And same thing with Kulusevski as well. I doubt he'll be back for the start of the season too. So we leave him out for the first half of the Champions League squad sizes. So this is pretty much what we're looking at. We're looking at association trained, Jed Spence, James Madison, Brendan Johnson, and Eze, and then register everyone else as the non-homegrown, and then Austin and Kyle Walker-Peters as the 2 club trained. Once again, bring our squad from 22 to 23. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff to wrap your head around, guys. It's tough. And like, I did the calculation for you guys here, just in case you don't understand it still. If you look at it, how squad size is reduced. So for each locally trained player below 8, the squad size is reduced by 1. Like I said before, so for each club trained player below 4, the squad size is reduced by 1 as well. So the large reduction applies. So the calculation is locally trained shortfall. So 8 minus 6 equals 2 players missing. Club trained shortfall. So 4 minus 2 equals 2 players missing. Largest shortfall 2. So max squad size goes from 25 So minus the 2, because we don't have the whole 8, we only have 6, minus the 2 becomes a 23. So 23 max players, that's how this is all calculated. It's so complicated, it's tough, and I know it's hard, guys, to understand or wrap your head around, but I'm trying to break it down as simply as I can for you guys. So I hope it makes sense. I really hope it does. And then what I did here as well is I broke down how we could form and how our lineup would look like, assuming the depth and all of our signings. So looking at the Premier League, assuming we do a 4-2-3-1, we're going to have Solanke as a head striker with Wissa and Matisse Tel as backups. And then on the left wing, you also have Eze as the left wing that can fill in, as well as Tel, Odegaard, and Mikey Moore. And you also have on the right wing, you have Mbeumo, Johnson, Kulusevski can fill out there, and Odegaard can play over there too. And then for the cam, you have James Maddison, Eze, Kulusevski. So Eze, obviously, versatile, can play left or the cam. And then for center mid, you have Bergwall and Pape Sarr. And then for CDM, you have Bentancur, Plenia, and Archie Gray. And then, of course, with the right back, you have Porro, Walker-Peters, and Archie Gray. And then center backs, you have Romero, Danzo, Dragusin. And then left center back, you have Van Ven, Vuskovic. And then left back, you have Udogie, Spence, and Archie Gray, too, who can fill out. We know Archie can fill out in the back line, in the midfield. He can play anywhere. And then, obviously, goalkeepers, you have Vicario, Kinsey, and Austin. So this would be our Premier League squad with the signings that we're bringing in. I think this is a solid squad. It sucks not seeing Son here, but I think the squad will just have barely enough to get us in the top 6. Top 4, I don't know, but I think the squad will be good enough for top 6 for sure. And I love the idea of having Wissa and Mbeumo stay together. Then you have Solanke here with Mbeumo. You have Eze in here. You have Plenia as a proper 6. You have Bentancur there too. And you have Bergwall who can cook. Like, I love this squad, how it looks as a whole. I still think we're lacking a little bit of quality. I think we need like another star. If we can get like a star striker maybe, like that, if we can get like a better Wissa, I don't know. It's tough, but I think overall this team is not half bad at all. It sucks seeing Walker-Peters here, but we need him for the squad numbers, unfortunately. But yeah, the squad isn't half bad, man. I like it. I do like it. And if you look at the Champions League squad, so the players we left out, so it's the same thing, but you don't have an Archie Gray. You don't have a Dragusin, so you only have 4 center backs in the Champions League, and then you obviously don't have a Kulusevski as well. So you have 2 cams, then you have the 3 right ringers, and then you have 2 central mids and 2 CDMs. So this is what we're looking at, man. So that pretty much wraps up the entire breakdown of what we could really be rocking here in next season. Like, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, man. Like, is this realistic? I don't know. I think I was pretty objective, pretty realistic in terms of breaking this down. I hope it all makes sense for you guys. I included AI and ChatGPT stuff so you can really understand it. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of mental gymnastics by the club to make sure that this all works. And I'm really curious to see if we actually like do what I predicted. On face value, you think a Wissa, Eze, and an Mbeumo is unrealistic, but if you actually sell the proper players, you look at the numbers, you crunch the numbers, it actually makes sense. It just depends how we can handle the negotiations in terms of price. If we're going to pay a bunch of extra millions for some of these players, it's just not going to work. But if we be smart with our negotiations, it will work. It'll all work out. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video, guys. Peace out.